guys, what is up and welcome back. As you guys can tell from the title of today's video, I have something a little bit different for you. I was actually on Skype with Sam and Sid. Sam is that bookish gamer here on YouTube, and Sid is one of our very best friends. You can find her in my down bar. She's actually one of the moderators on our Hyper Not group. If you guys want to follow her on Instagram, her Instagram is always listed down below. But we were actually kind of talking because each one of us is in a different Hogwarts house. I'm a Slytherin, Sid is a Hufflepuff, and Sam is obviously a Ravenclaw. And we were always kind of talking about Stephen King because we all have this sort of slightly unhealthy obsession with him, and we've all read very different books by him. I have by no means read all of his books, so it's nice to kind of talk about what happens in each of them. And we kind of got onto the topic of books by Stephen King that were based more so around houses, like what books I as a Slytherin really enjoy, what books Sid as a Hufflepuff really enjoys, Sam as a Ravenclaw, and they asked me if I would make this kind of series on my channel. I actually asked Sam to participate, but she didn't really want to. She kind of wanted it to just be like something that I did. So today I am going to be bringing you my Slytherin house recommendations in Stephen King book format. I'm really excited to do this because I'm really geeked about talking about all of these books, and I don't know, these just definitely apply to me because I am a Slytherin. They sort of have a Slytherin-esque undertone. So if you happen to also be in our greenhouse, if you are also a Slytherin, hello. These books are definitely for you. I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, please give it a thumbs up and think about subscribing. But I'm gonna go ahead and get started because I have 5 books. I tried to narrow it down to about 5 per house. We had a ton, mostly because Stephen King literally puts out like 30 books a year. So there's always so many books to talk about, but I'm gonna go ahead and talk about my top 5 favorites with you today. So the first book I have here is actually technically written by Richard Bachman, but it's still a Stephen King book. I get a lot of questions about Richard Bachman versus Stephen King, if they are, you know, really the same writing style, if they're really the same author, and I definitely think that they are. So the first book that I have to talk to you guys about today is Rage. Rage is actually about a boy who comes into a classroom, kills the teacher, and then spends the rest of the day actually trying to pull from each of the students why they think they should live, why they think that they should be alive. And I think that that's so very Slytherin, the why are you here, explain to me why you deserve to live kind of thing. It's definitely one of those mental books where you have to really think about, like, why do I desire to live? Why do I deserve to live? And I think that that is so Slytherin, and definitely a book that appeals to me. If you guys are not familiar with this book, you should definitely read it. This is definitely a book that's very hard to read as well, though, especially in the current political climate of the United States with all of the mass shootings and things like that that are happening in schools. So take this book, you know, very lighthearted as much as you possibly can. It is obviously way too true to our society these days, but I definitely think it is one of the top Slytherin reads that you can find. So the next book I have here is a classic. I actually do not have the cover for this book anymore. That is how old this book is. I'm pretty sure I got this from my birth dad, so it's quite old. I think this might be one of the very first editions, but it would be The Shining. If you guys have not seen the movie or read the book, you absolutely should. I have actually not read this book. I have seen the movie 100 times though. I've read bits and pieces of this book. I have, you know, digested as much of it as I can, but this is a very hard book for me to read. But the reason why this is on my Slytherin recommendations is this book actually follows Jack and Danny Torrance, Jack being the father, Danny being the son. And Jack actually decides to become a kind of like overseer of this hotel called the Overlook in Colorado that is sort of abandoned in the winter times, and he's just there to make sure that the fires stay lit and the pipes don't freeze and just take care of the grounds of the hotel. And the reason why I think this book is such a Slytherin read is Jack goes out there so selfishly to have space and time away from his family because it's a huge hotel. In the beginning of the book, you know, he's just like, I'm trying to write my book because he is an author and he really wants that space and that time. He's like, screw my family, I just want to write this book. And because of that, a lot of bad things start happening in this book. The hotel is actually haunted. Like I said, if you guys aren't familiar with the story at all, this hotel is very haunted, and the ghosts actually start really screwing with Jack, and it actually turns Jack against his family. So Danny is kind of at the brunt of that as his son. But I really like this book as a Slytherin representation because it's always that constant, you really wanted power, you really thinking selfishly, and things kind of blew up in your face. Like, unfortunately, that is a very Slytherin trait. I'm constantly doing things like that where what I want and what I need, unfortunately, is always at the forefront of my mind. I'm always trying to make sure that I'm doing whatever I can to achieve the goals that I'm trying to achieve. I'm not here to sugarcoat how a Slytherin is, but this book is definitely one of those books where somebody was seeking a little bit too much from life and life kind of blew up in their face. Alright, now I'm going to talk about one of my most favorite Stephen King books of all time, which I think is a wonderful representation of Slytherin. give me a second to go ahead and explain. It would be Under the Dome. Now this book is a very hefty book. Let's see how many pages are in this. There are over 1,000 pages in this book, and it is pure Slytherin. I think a lot of the houses could actually be represented in this book. I think that they're all sort of represented in different characters, but I feel like the underlying theme of this book is very Slytherin. Now this book technically follows our main character, Dale Barbara. He's actually traveling to a town called Chester's Mill. He's actually trying to travel through Chester's Mill because he's actually trying to avoid some people who are looking for him, and a giant dome actually goes over the entire town of Chester's Mill, so he is unable to leave. In the very beginning of the book, you actually hear about a cow that is skewered in half in front of Dale Barbara, and it is such a cool book. The reason why I think this is very, very Slytherin is the underlying plot of this is actually a human device to gain power. A lot of the story is about people who actually set up this dome to make sure that people within it obey them, essentially, and they are trying to become the essentially overlords of this city, and the reason why they put the dome down is for that reason. And I think that is such a Slytherin thing. It obviously blows up in everyone's faces at the end. It's one of those constant, I really want power, I really want things to go my way Slytherin wise, and it just essentially blows up in their faces, and it's so funny to watch. Also, there's actually a show about this that's actually done very, very well. So if you're interested at all in this, but you don't really want to get through a 1,000-page book because a lot of his books are quite giant, I would recommend the show as well. But I definitely, as a Slytherin reading this, identified with it, because once you get to the end of it, you're like, okay, I see what they were trying to do, and I understand kind of in a way what they were trying to do, but obviously it doesn't work, and that is our Slytherin downfall. But another reason why I wanted to mention this as a Slytherin thing is not just because they were evil and decided to do that, but because they genuinely thought that they knew best. They thought they were doing what is best for their town. They thought they were doing what is best for the people of their town when they actually lowered the dome. So that's another thing. Like Slytherins, we obviously try to do things that benefit us a lot because we tend to be our #1 priority, but we also do care a lot, and I think that's kind of why I identified this with this book, because they do want good things for the people in the town. They want them to listen, but they, in their own twisted little way, they want them to listen because they think it'll also benefit them, because they think that they know what is best. Now the next one that I want to talk about is actually a short story. It has been made into a movie, but like I said, it's not a book. It is actually a story from a book called Different Seasons by Stephen King. This is one of my very favorite books on the entire planet. I absolutely love this book, and there is a story in here called The Apt Pupil. If you guys are not familiar, The Apt Pupil actually follows a young boy who is reading to his neighbor, and his neighbor actually ends up being a runaway from World War II. He is a Nazi that has escaped, essentially answering for any of his crimes. The boy doesn't know that right away though, and he actually starts reading to him, and then later he finds the works and things like that of the man who he's reading to, and he starts to realize who he is. The reason why this story appealed to me as a Slytherin is the boy doesn't turn him in. He just keeps reading to him. Now, I'm not going to go over the ending of the story because the ending is just like a complete mindfuck, but it is done so well. It is so good. Like I said, they loved it enough that they made it into a movie, and not even one of those bad Stephen King movies, but like a genuinely good movie. I love it. I'm pretty sure Ian McKellen actually plays the Nazi in this story in the movie, but I absolutely love this, and the reason why it appealed to me as a Slytherin is the constant want for knowledge, the constant want to know things, but also that morally gray line between, you know, this is just an old man that I'm reading to, and this is who he's trying to be now, as opposed to this is the Nazi that he once was, and that kind of thing. That blurring of that line, I really liked that, and I really, really thought it was super Slytherin, as well as the ending. Like I said, I can't go over 100% the ending of this book, or of that story, but it's definitely a very, very Slytherin ending, so you should definitely read it if you're looking for that morally gray line represented in a story. Alright, now we are going to talk about the most Slytherin Stephen King book I could find, and it is 100% one of my very, very favorites, and it is so Slytherin it hurts, and that would be Needful Things. You guys have heard me speak about this book before. This is one of my very favorite Stephen King books, as I said. This book actually follows our main character, Leland Gaunt. I guess technically he's the main character. There's also a small boy that's represented, but he opens a store called Needful Things in a very small town in Derry. And what happens is when you go into the store, you tend to see things that mean a lot to you. Like, I think the first thing that you see is a baseball card. A kid comes in to purchase this baseball card, and Leland lets him know that you actually don't purchase things within his store, you do favors for him, you do deeds for him, and things go haywire because there are people who come in who say, I want this man to love me, I want out of my relationship, I want this person who's really pissing me off to go away, kind of thing. And Leland starts asking for more and more from the people of this town, for the people who are buying from Needful Things. The reason why this is such a Slytherin book to me is because Leland wants people to have what they want. He genuinely does, but he wants something out of it. And at the same time, like I said, he starts asking people to do some pretty messed up things. He starts asking people to assault, murder, you know, steal. There's a lot of stuff that happens in this book. And he kind of watches it from a perspective of watching it unfold, like seeing how people are handling it, kind of how it affects the human psyche. This book is definitely one of those books that really makes you think about humanity, and I just absolutely love it. And as a Slytherin, like I said, it's definitely one of my very, very top favorites. Alright guys, so that is it for today's video. That is all my Slytherin book recommendations. I'm obviously going to be going through all of the other houses. If you identified with any of these, even if you are not a Slytherin, I think you should definitely read them. As you guys know, I absolutely love Stephen King. He's one of my very, very favorite authors, as well as just genuinely one of my very favorite people on the planet. And I really like talking about his writing. I actually want to set aside a month or a couple of months or however long it takes me to read only his books. There are about 10 or 15 that I haven't read from him that I really need to sit down and get to, because I used to be one of those people who kind of read them in chronological order, and I kind of stopped doing that because for a while my OCD just made it impossible to read a Stephen King novel with the type of OCD that I have. So I'm glad to be back in the scene. I'm currently reading The Outsider by him and absolutely loving it. So I'm really excited, and I'm really excited to continue this series with you guys. Let me know which house you guys would like me to do next, whichever house you guys identify with the most. But yeah, that is it for today's video. I'm sorry if the lighting was off a little bit, but I kind of can't control the lighting in my office anymore because it is summertime. But I hope you guys are having a good week, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!